Yo, I'm tryna get my sterling up in the city, so s'il play. As soon as my child can walk, it's straight Project Mbappe. But all the verbal, as soon as I hear that whistle, we get straight to the action. Come on lads, where's the passion? Do like Alamatsi, we wear headbands for the fashion. If the defenders drop back, we counter and then attack them. I got my eye on the ball, I got my eye on the ball, yeah. I got my eye on the ball, I got my eye on the ball, yeah. I got my eye on the ball, I got my eye on the ball.
Yes, people, you already know what it is. We're back live and direct once again, Eyes on the Ball TV. But you know, when you see these faces, it's actually eyes on the court, because we're going to be talking buckets. We're going to be talking hoops today. We had one of our recent playoff roundups with Undiluted Media's Sam, which was great to dissect some of the things that have happened. And obviously, we're getting deeper and deeper into the first round of the playoffs. And it's only right that we have another playoff roundup. And we've got a special guest once again, live from Premium Hoops. Got Mark Schindler. Mark, how you doing, bro?
I'm really great. Thank you guys for having me on. First of all, you'll have to send me a link to whatever song that was coming in. I've always been a bit. I enjoy drill quite a bit. I've always been a big. I'm not like big on Skepta. I like Stormzy a ton. But I'd never heard that song before, and I need that in my life moving forward. That's I'm working out to that tomorrow.
No, I appreciate that. Definitely can hook you up with our Eyes on the Ball song. But Nadim, man, what are you telling me, bro? How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm looking forward to this episode. Special guest. Yeah, so yeah, I've been excited about this one the entire day.
No, for sure, man, for sure. Cool. We might as well get straight into it. Obviously, we're one man down, but that won't stop us from getting into what we need to get to today. I think I'll come to you, Nadim, first before Mark comes in. We'll give Mark time to warm up and get into the things. But the first series I want to go into is the Heat, man. With the Heat, where's it gone wrong? Where do you think it's gone wrong? From literally last year, where we were saying like the huge surprises of the league. Jimmy Butler, we crowned him as a top 10 player at the beginning of the season in our beginning of the season rankings, and it just hasn't worked out this year. What do you think's happened? Because they're inevitably going to get swept, in my opinion. So what do you think's happened, bro?
That's sad. That's very sad. I can't believe I thought this series was going to 7 and it could finish in 4. I think just from the looks of it, they can't generate offense. They struggle to generate offense. They're not getting shots. The same shots that Duncan Robinson was getting in the playoffs and the bubble, he's getting them now and he's missing. Tyler Hero is a shell of who he was last season. You know, Bam Adebayo not looking at the rim for some reason. And I said this before, Jimmy Butler needs to be a lot more selfish for this team. He's a very team-oriented guy. He shares the ball a lot, but it kind of need him to be more aggressive, you know, and looking for his own shot. And Goran Dragic is really the only one that has shone on the offensive end. So they're just struggling to generate offense. And no matter how good a great defensive team you are, if you have to continually stress your defense because you cannot score the ball, eventually it will hurt your defense. It's going to hurt your defense. And that's what's happening right now. And the Bucks, you have to give the Bucks credit. They learned their lesson from last season. They learned, they used it, and now they're destroying the Heat. And a great revenge tour. So yeah, I think it's just right now they're just struggling to score the ball. The scoreline is telling you what you need to know. They can't score right now, and it's just stressing their defense too much.
Yeah, Mark, what do you think about it?
I mean, you brought up a lot of great points, Nadeem. Like, I think in looking at this Heat team right now, like you mentioned with Jimmy, it is so tough because I really like what they've done and what Mike Budenholzer has done in putting Giannis on Jimmy. I think because Jimmy is just not a threat from outside, Giannis really struggles guarding ball screens. But even if you are throwing a ball screen at Giannis to try and get Jimmy away, Giannis can duck under. He doesn't have to go over and fight over screens to guard Jimmy. They really have just lacked, like you mentioned, Goran has had an okay series, but he's also doing a lot of it against Milwaukee's bench. They just really lack any kind of dribble drive game right now. And when they do get inside, Brook Lopez has been fantastic in this series. Like, Jimmy is shooting 30% from the field, and that's not a misread. Like, that's for Jimmy Butler to really be struggling that much is kind of very telling in where they're at. Their outlet shooters are not there. Like, Duncan Robinson shot well-ish, but I mean, Trevor Ariza has been awful from outside. You can tell they're really missing what Jay Crowder brought them last year on both ends, I think. And it stinks. Trevor Ariza has been really good for them this year. It just hasn't happened in the playoffs. And I think you're just seeing like, I don't think Victor Oladipo completely changes the series, but like if let's say you do have a healthy Victor Oladipo, it does make a difference because they miss having, if they do kick the ball out to the second side, there's nobody who can really drive the ball in right now. And just a big issue too is like you mentioned with Bam. He really took a step forward this year as a player, creating from the mid-range, driving more, and it just hasn't been there for him at all in this series. I don't want to say that he's like completely in his head or anything. I mean, I'm not there. I can't say that for sure. But in watching it, you can feel him thinking almost.
Yeah.
Like I would really like to see him just go at the rim, even if he misses. I don't really care. I just want to see him do something because their offense has been stalling out a ton. But that would be my short version of what's going on with Miami right now.
I think you both made great points. For me, the focus is, and I'd say two things. One, it's kind of wider things away from this series. You're regretting tremendously the James Harden trade. I mean, Tyler Hero was the main guy in the package that they didn't want to let go of. And I thought, look, at the end of the day, I understand that he had a great series, but Tyler Hero is a shooter. There isn't much more to his game. He's a sniper, he's a shooter. And obviously, yes, there is the saying that you can't let go of shooters. Shooters don't come around. They don't grow on trees. But at the end of the day, when you have a guy like James Harden and the possibility of matching him up with a guy like Jimmy Butler, you've got a ready-made team there who has the potential to make noise. And that's really that all had to happen to pull the trigger. And you look at now, as Tyler Hero is having that second season syndrome where you kind of don't meet up to the expectations that you set yourself in the beginning. So I think there's that. And then second of all, if I have more focus on the actual series, game one, it takes me back to the Cavs versus the Warriors, I believe in 2018, 2019, one of those years where J.R. Smith obviously bugs out.
Yeah, I'll never forget.
And with how many seconds it was to go. And LeBron basically had the game of his life, and they still ended up losing in OT. You look at it in this series, the game one series, where literally the Bucks shot 60% from free, and the Bucks are one of the best three-point shooting teams in the league. They shot 16% from free. The Heat shot 40% from free, which is pretty much average or just above average, and they still ended up losing. Once you lose game one playing your best, and the Bucks didn't even play anywhere close to their best, you really don't have a shot. And really what you've seen in the last two games is the Heat get an old-fashioned whipping. Like literally, it's just been really bad, and it's been awkward to watch at times. I mean, Jimmy Butler is nearly averaging about 38 minutes, and he can't really do anything in terms of generating the offense. Guys aren't hitting shots, and when guys aren't hitting shots in a team that's predicated on Duncan Robinson, Iguodala, Tyler Hero, a lot of these Trevor Ariza, a lot of these guys getting looks on the wing. If they're not hitting their shots, there's really no hope on the team, especially when Jimmy Butler's not a three-point shooter. He's not someone who can really just take the ball and say, I'm going to shoot from deep. And yeah, I mean, they're struggling really. They're still a good defensive team, but when you're not generating offense, it becomes tough. Because what's so interesting about the game as well is I believe they actually had the same number of turnovers, 15 turnovers. But when you can't convert turnovers into second chance points, into better offense, basically, it becomes really, really tough on you. And yeah, I'm worried because when you look at the roster, and I'll throw this back out to you, Mark, first, and then Nadim, you can go. What happens next year? Because you've got guys like Trevor Ariza, Andre Iguodala, that you're not really sure on what you do, whether you take them back. Victor Oladipo is most certainly not going to get the contract he was looking for going into next season because he was looking for the max, and I don't think a team pays him that, especially with the injuries that he's had. And then you look at the rest of the roster, Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, of course they will probably come back, but what is the future for this roster?
Yeah, it's really tough to project that looking out because this free agency class has really dwindled. Like I think part of what was difficult for this Heat team, like you could imagine before the season started, before Giannis signed his extension, I mean, the Heat had been well reported along with, like Toronto, they'd been looking at trying to having a run at adding Giannis in free agency, and that kind of, of course, it didn't come to fruition. So they hobbled together some salaries. Like they signed Kelly Olynyk and Myers Leonard early to those contracts. Or actually, no, Kelly Olynyk they didn't sign. It was Myers Leonard they signed to that deal just to fill out their cap sheet. Obviously, the deal for Andre Iguodala. I want to say, Iguodala and Goran Dragic have a combined $34 million in team option salary this offseason, which is a lot, and I don't think either guy is going to turn those down. So they really don't have a lot to work with this offseason. So it's either going to be through trade or hopefully internal growth. Like I know Tyler Hero has really struggled here, but I do still think like it's hard because I think he got way too propped up by the bubble, and that's not his fault. It's just how, drumming up things works out sometimes. I do think he's still going to take a meaningful step forward and be a good player. But like you mentioned with James Harden, that is a deal I would have liked to see them make. Like Jimmy Butler's 31 years old. He's going to be 32 soon. And you can't have a roster that's built for now and the future at the same time. It's very difficult to do that. I think if you, especially, with given who Pat Riley is and what he preaches, like I do think that was a miss for them. I liked when they went out to get Victor, but of course that doesn't work out with what happened health-wise with him. I'll be interested to see what Miami does with Victor moving forward too, because it had been reported for a while that he wanted to be in Miami. But this changes the calculus for sure.
Definitely. Then what are you thinking?
I think, well, first of all, Victor Oladipo, I think he'll be back in Miami, but probably on a shorter-term contract. And now with the amount of money they're paying Bam and Jimmy, and probably they'll have to pay Dragic and Iguodala, they'll probably need that shorter-term contract just to save cap space. But I think with Tyler Hero, and especially, one, you have to remember that turnaround from the bubble was very short for both the Miami Heat and the Lakers. And if you're a young player like Tyler Hero, it's quite intense to go from that to this. So I'm not saying I expected him to have as up or down a season as he did, but I certainly didn't expect him to be, or take a step. He'll probably do that in the next couple of years. And I still think there's a player in there, and I think Miami should actually still keep on to him, keep hold of him unless something remarkable happens. But if you look at what's out there in the free agency market, there's not really much they can do. Can they make any trades? Do they have that many assets out there? I don't really see much they can do. And obviously in the NBA, you never know what happens. There's players out there that they'll probably want their team to fit their culture. But with the amount of money they have tied up in 4 players especially, I don't really know what they can do. And maybe signing back Victor Oladipo, just they have a lot of money stored in different places, in a few places. So, look, they're clearly a great team. They have a great head coach. They have a great GM, and they have a great organization in itself. So they'll be fine. I just think for this season that they do have one. They have a bit of bubble fatigue. They haven't recovered from that. It was such a short turnaround, and I also think they're being found out with the lack of offense, and it's just killing them now.
Yeah, I think. Mark, you made a great point about Jay Crowder. I think he was a huge miss because them implementing the wall so effectively last year was down to Jay Crowder being able to guard Giannis on occasions where it was stopping him from getting to the rim. So, I'm less optimistic than you guys to close the chapter on the Heat. I just think that when you look at NBA team, how history has played out, every team has a window of opportunity to win, a window of opportunity to obviously rebuild, a window of opportunity to tank. It always happens in cycles. That's one of the big reasons why it's taken me so long to commit to a team, by the way. Just when we were obviously getting interested in the NBA, it's not like football where you know whether your team's going to be good or not, or whether they can get relegated. Like the NBA is your team's most certainly going to go through a cycle. And I just think they missed the trick. I think they missed that opportunity. You get NBA finals unexpectedly. You have to win now. You have to be aggressive. You have to go out and see what's available and go and make the best possible moves. And I thought Harden was the best possible move at the time. You look at Andre Iguodala, he doesn't have the same. Remember when the Lakers wanted him, Miami wanted him when he was at Memphis, and he was it Memphis?
Memphis.
Was it Memphis? Yeah, Memphis, and supposedly he was going to get bought out and everything like that. A lot of people wanted him. Memphis wanted to get a nice little trade package for him. I don't think he commands the same package. Trevor Ariza was another sought-out guy, especially after this playoffs he's having now. I don't think he's going to have that same value. So you're looking around and looking at what potentially has value on your roster, and you're looking potentially at giving up Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson for less than what they originally commanded before. So in that situation, you might have to just hold on to them. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's why I'm less so optimistic.
I think in the NBA, you never know what's going to happen. You never know who's going to demand the trade. Bradley Beal could say, I'm done with Washington in the next few weeks, and he could be a Miami Heat. You never know. Karl Anthony Towns could demand a trade from Minnesota.
If I put that out to you then, if the Wizards said, obviously I don't really know how the money works, so maybe Mark might help me in here, but if the Miami Heat or if the Wizards said they want Hero and Duncan Robinson, and they obviously wanted Bill, would you make that trade?
I mean, if I'm the Wizards, I mean, like if you're Miami, I would make that trade in a heartbeat. Like Duncan Robinson's going to get paid a lot, so that would make it tough because it would have to be a sign and trade. There'd probably have to be some extra salary in there, but I mean, I don't. If I'm the Wizards, that's not enough for me. Considering how good Bradley Beal is, like I like Tyler Hero, but I don't think he's going to be like an all-star or anything. That's just my opinion, but I mean, you never know. And it's interesting too with Duncan Robinson because I don't want to call him. I don't want to say he's going to get overpaid, but he's going to get paid a lot. And I think you can replace shooting a lot more easily than you can replace, high level scoring. So yeah, but I mean, I think that's something that Brad could definitely end up in Miami, but from everything I know, it seems like he really wants to be in Washington. But again, that can change in a heartbeat. But money wise, it's something that they can make work.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. Cool. We'll close the chapter there on Miami and see what they can do. I do think the series is done. Whether they do end up trying to win one game or whether it is a sweep, series is done. In terms of the Bucks, I want to talk a bit of Bucks. I think it's going to be the Bucks versus the Nets in the next round. I anticipate the Nets winning tonight. So the Bucks v the Nets in the next round should be a very, very interesting tie. And I actually believe, and I don't know how you guys feel, so I'm literally just going to say the statement and then you can respond to it with your thoughts and your opinions on it. But I think the Bucks are the best equipped in the NBA, so both East and West, to beat in the Nets. What do we think?
I would agree with that. I said that just a couple of weeks ago. Like I think I'll put it on the roster. Like it. I don't know if you guys saw, but Dante DiVincenzo just got announced as out for the rest of the playoffs, so that definitely takes a hit. But I mean, I would agree. Like you have Drew, Giannis, Chris are all really high level defenders. Brooke has been fantastic at the rim. I like some of the guys that can bring off the bench. But most importantly, too, like they have the ability to match up, but also Brooklyn doesn't really have the ability to stop what they're going to do. Like I just don't know how Brooklyn even tries to match up with Giannis. Like maybe they try and throw Nick Claxton at him, but at the same time, he's going to get into foul trouble really quickly, most likely. Like that's just that's asking a lot out of a second-year player. So I would agree. Like I would pick Milwaukee in that series, but I think it's something where you can kind of go either way with it.
Sure. And then what are you thinking? That's your team.
Yeah, I think. Look, I'm picking the Lakers. I think the Lakers are the ones that I think that match up well with the Nets more than any other team, mainly from a talent factor as well. But I also think one thing you're going to have to do with the Nets is keep up with them. They don't plan on trying to turn your game into a defensive, grinded out performance. That's not what they're going to do. They're going to turn this game into a track meet, make you go up and down the court, and you can see if you can keep up with them for 4 games out of 7. If you can do that, then fine. They'll say you were the better team. But they don't believe anyone can do that. And that's what that Steve Nash, D'Antoni offense is predicated on, that we believe we will outscore you every single time. What the Nets do now is they get timely stops. And that's what they'll have to do against the Bucks, get timely stops. And we've seen it against the Celtics. We saw it at points in the regular season that when they need to play defense, they will play defense. We've seen it against the Bucks this season as well. So if you're asking from a talent perspective and who matches up well, I think it's the Lakers. But in the East, it's the Bucks, because because you can throw a lot of. They have a lot of length, and they can throw that at KD. They have a lot of size. They can throw that at Kyrie. So they do have some guys who can match it well. But I think the Lakers are the ones that can really, really cause the Nets the most problems.
The reason why I make that statement anyway is because just looking at how both teams match up and looking at what can be thrown at the Nets, because really and truly, look, what the Nets have created is something that we might never see again. It is unbelievably scary, that kind of firepower. And I think what scares me even more is that you have a guy like Joe Harris who could easily have the most points in the quarter, for example, in a half. He can easily go off as well, because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, he was the second best 3-point shooter in the league in the regular season. I think Marcus Morris was the first. I can't remember, but top 3.
Yeah, I was right around there.
Yeah, so top 3 anyway. So, like, I just think that in the regular season, I think that was the matchup where we saw, like, fair matchup between both teams, where we saw KD, we saw Harden, we saw Kyrie, and it was like the Nets versus the Bucks. I think we saw KD, Harden, and Kyrie at least once in the 3 times that they played each other.
I know it was Harden. No, we didn't see them.
Oh,
the first one was Kyrie was out. It was Harden and KD that were playing together.
Yeah,
and then the last 2 I think was Kyrie and KD.
Oh yeah. So we never saw all 3 in it.
Mm.
No, that's fair enough. But I just do think that Giannis, in terms of what can be done by the Nets to stop Giannis. I mean, you got Blake Griffin playing the 5 at times, which just will not work if they play the Bucks. So yeah, man, it's going to be an interesting series, definitely. If I take quick predictions, then Bucks Nets, who are we taking?
I would take Bucks in 7. I think. I know it's the talent for the Nets is hard to match up with, but I do think, like you made a great point, Nadeem. Like, they do step up and play defense. It's not great defense, but they. I just think I look at this Bucks team and the way they're playing. Part of it's a little bit more just my thoughts than real analysis. Like, I just feel like this team, like the run that they're making right now, feels like they're going to go on a finals run. Like watching them against Miami. They went out yesterday and they could have kind of just coasted through the game. They know how to beat them. They went out and they were surgical yesterday. Like they went to Brook Lopez in the post early and said, "Okay, we're going to beat the crap out of you and take this game," and they did. Like I feel like this team has a lot to prove and they want to. And I just think the strides that Giannis took were really meaningful this season. Like we saw against the Nets. I think they played twice in the last 3 weeks before the regular season ended. You saw him a lot more composed in the half court instead of just barreling to the rim. He's posting and reposting. He's just slowing down. He's finding better passing reads. He's not turning over the ball as much. He's working a little bit more out of the mid-range. I just don't like it. I thought he was somebody who finished top 3 on my ballot for MVP this year. I feel like he's almost been an afterthought in some regards because everyone was waiting for the Bucks until the playoffs. And I think that's fair in some regards, but I mean, Giannis has been incredible. And he's turned it up even more in the playoffs as a defensive player. So, I'm taking the Bucks, even if the Nets might feel like they should be the overwhelming favorite. I'm going to bet against the odds on this one.
What the point you make is very interesting, actually. Just to quickly add to that, I mean, the reason for everything you just said, Giannis's composure and everything that's happening with him, is Drew Holiday. And I've been saying it for a long time. In basketball, when you've got a supreme wing, what you need is a point guard that people also fear, someone who can handle the ball, handle the rock, that people also need to worry about. And there's a thing where if you attract a lot of attention, which Drew Holiday does, because you need to guard Drew Holiday at the perimeter. He's a 40% 3-point shooter, so you can't give him an open look. You can't leave him free on the half court. And what he does is he attracts a lot of attention, which allows Giannis more room, more space to make easy cuts to the rim, to get those cheap 2 points here and there that he wasn't able to get in last year and the playoffs. So I think that's so key. Switching Eric Bledsoe with Drew Holiday has been a key move because Eric Bledsoe wasn't a great 3-point. In fact, he just wasn't a good point guard all around for that team. And I think what Drew Holiday provides on the defensive end, of course, but also offensively, has been the key to everything that Giannis has been able to do so far. So yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting for sure.
No, 100% I agree with you. That Drew Holiday pickup was one of the moves of the offseason. It was that good of a pickup. And the thing with Giannis is, and I'll say this every single time, it's does he trust his game in pressurized situations? Because that's always what's happened. Whenever he's been down and his season's been on the line, or someone's put pressure on him, on the defensive end, he struggled. And this season, when people were saying, "Oh, he needs to shoot more threes and he needs to work on his 3-point shot," I was like, "Yeah, but he also needs to expand his offensive game, and he's done that more." And the shot yesterday, he hit over Bama Adebayo, the fadeaway, on the sideline. I thought, okay, yeah, he's taking those tries to take his offensive game to the next level. Now, does he feel comfortable doing that in pressure situations? Because that's what separates the great offensive players. They trust everything that they have in their bag. I don't know if Giannis is there yet, but they have set the Bucks up to be the best version of themselves, and they're playing the best version of themselves right now because of the moves they made, and also because of where Giannis is playing. I just want to know what happens if they go down 2-1 or 3-2 in a series. Does he still play that same way? And those are the question marks I still have. And when it comes to the playoff time, I try not to have to me, the team that wins is the team with the least amount of question marks. And I feel like I still have a couple about the Bucks. I'm not doubting the talent is there. It's just I just have a few questions and they need to answer for me to truly believe that they're a championship team.
What's your prediction?
Oh, Nets. Nets. We taking that.
We'll see.
6 or 7. 6 or 7. We have home court, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, you finished second. Yes, you did.
All right. I give the Bucks credit. 7. Plus, I think we're at home for Game 7. So, yeah, I think
that's fair enough. Look, at the end of the day, I just think the best thing that could have happened to the Bucks is to not have been the favorites in the East. At least you got the 76ers, you got the Nets. They've kind of been riding the wave and just been going undercover. Giannis actually has very, very good numbers this year that could have won the MVP in other years, but because no one wants to, it's a narrative war. No one wants to give Giannis the MVP back to back number of times. So yeah, he was never really going to win that. But yeah, man, it's great for them personally to just keep going under the radar, and I think they're going to cause a serious upset against the Nets, man. I honestly do believe so. I mean, a part of me is because I don't want the Nets to make the final so that the Lakers can win, but I mean, hey, it is what it is. Cool. We'll move on swiftly to Kawhi. Legacy-wise, Mark, what do you think? If Kawhi,
we're launching into legacy talk already, man.
I mean, the Mavs play the Clippers tonight. Definitely a big game. Not even series now. A big game for the Clippers. I mean, you lose this game and it might be all over. There's a lot of analysts. I don't subscribe to the American media analysts. I think they do make things, they exaggerate things, obviously for views and whatnot. And look, I don't blame them for that. But if they do lose tonight, I do think genuinely that the series is well and truly done. Because I just don't see how they come back 3-0, and because Luka is capable of winning one himself. Do you know what I'm saying? So, legacy-wise, well, first of all, do you think they win tonight? And then legacy-wise, do you think what do you think of Kawhi's legacy if they lose this series?
A couple of things. I mean, I think number one, I would bet my money that the Clippers win tonight because they have to. If they, I mean, you're right. If they lose this game, you can call the series as far as I'm concerned. Going down 3-0 when you're not even going to be back home for Game 4, that's a death sentence. I think I look at this series right now, and it's a lot less about Kawhi and Paul George and more about their role players and also just the team construction, the way that they are playing. Like looking at, I mean, Kawhi just had a ridiculous game in Game 2. PG has been good as well. Like he hasn't shot well from 3, but overall he's been incredible from the field. The problem is Luka is the best player on the court. On a playing alongside Kawhi and Paul George, Luka is the best player on the court pretty comfortably. And a lot of that's because of what he's doing as a playmaker for everyone else. I've been really confused by the Clippers game plan. I just don't understand what they're doing out there. The defense is really purposeless to me. Like they switch everything, but they shouldn't switch everything. Switching Ivica Zubac or Patrick Beverley onto Luka Doncic makes no sense because he's going to cook those guys. And most importantly, they send themselves into rotation a lot on defense unnecessarily. There'll be times where they send help and they should, in their scheme, they're supposed to switch, but then they end up not switching and there's a gap and somebody gets a wide open look at the rim. You can tell like they just aren't all on the same page together defensively. And they kind of looked like this a little bit all year, not as bad as they do now. And I was just thinking that they would, they have the guys, PG and Kawhi are all defense level guys, and they have other quality defenders on the team. They'll turn it up in the playoffs. And that just hasn't happened. What I would really like to see, just adjustments wise, I think either Kawhi or PG has to take Luka on for an entire game and just say, okay, we're going to sell out to shut you down. But I don't understand why they've been trapping him so much. I mean, every time I've watched Luka play basketball and a team sends a trap at him, he picks apart their defense. I don't understand how you can watch or scout his games and not see that if you're the Clippers scouting department and coaching staff. Yeah, for sure.
Just a quick question, Mark, on what you said. I want to understand, because obviously there's only so much we know here living in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
In America, is it that Clippers, what is the Clippers aura? Like, why is it that when they, for example, are the favorites, they never get the job done? Or why are they seen as like kind of the laughing stock of the NBA? Like, what is it about them?
That's such a good question. I was thinking about that earlier today. It's similar to, like we were talking about this a little bit before we got started. I mean, Man U is if you're in Manchester, Man U is the place you root for, correct? Yeah. And Man City is that place that was bought, and it's Etihad owns it, and it's big money, it's new money. That's the Clippers. The Clippers, like you can go like I think that one of the great points I could bring up is Chris Paul when he was part of the Clippers. I think he went to like a Dodgers game or something in LA and he got booed because it's all Lakers fans. Like stuff like that would happen routinely. Like even when Lob City was there and they were so good, like Lob City was one of my favorite teams growing up, like Blake and JJ Redick and Chris Paul. Even when they were that good and the Lakers were in the lottery and struggling and Kobe was, on the downside of his career, people came out in droves for that Lakers team and will boo the Clippers still. Like it's just never been a quote unquote Clippers town. And I think that's part of it. I think this is less about like just the series itself. I think it's a little bit less about that and more just like they feel like a mechanical team in some ways. And like analysis wise, I mean, they don't have, they really just lack playmaking. Like their team is just constructed of a lot of kind of archetypical wing players, but there's just really not a lot of high level playmaking. And it's hard, especially at the highest level, to make things happen. And that's been the problem. Like none of their role players are doing anything offensively. And that's not to throw them under the bus, but Marcus Morris has been rough. Last year, he had stretches where it looked like he could guard Luka. This year, he has been awful on Luka Doncic. He's just not quick enough. Offensively, he's contributed very little. Like Nick Batum needs to play more. I really want to see Nick Batum play more because he's looked good. But I mean, just overall, like you can just see that lack of playmaking is really shown through. But at the same time, I just don't think this Clippers team should be losing to this Mavs team. They're just fundamentally getting outcoached, to be completely honest.
For sure. Dan, what are you thinking this series and Kawhi legacy-wise?
I think this series is still very much alive because I think the Clippers are going to win tonight. But for that to happen, I think they need to tell Paul George today, no switching, you're guarding Luka Doncic. And the reason I think that also should happen is because they're playing at the Mavs pace. More than anything, the Luka Doncic is finding his teammates, but they're going up and down the court every single time, and you can't play at that pace with the Mavs. The Mavs want to play that pace. That's not the way the Clippers play. So I think if you have Paul George, guarding Luka, he's slipping on the screens, he's fighting over screen, sorry, and he's getting in Luka's face, I think it actually helps slow the game down and plays more to the Clippers' advantage. I think also, I don't blame Kawhi and Paul George that much for this series. You want to say they should do more, fine, but what more do you really expect from them at this point in time? That they're doing quite a lot offensively. It's the other guys around them that are doing nothing. Patrick Beverley is being made to look like a fool by Luka. Marcus Morris, as you said, he's not playing very well. Zubac, Ibaka, Batum. Okay, Batum hasn't played that much, but he's not been there. And Rondo's he's not been playing. So it's the guys around them that need to do more. I look at the Clippers and I think there is no reason why this should really be a contest.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be. They have a great roster. So right now, I think they're just being outcoached. And I also feel like I don't know if they prepared for the Mavs that well. I really don't. I don't think they truly appreciated what Luka Doncic could do to them.
Yeah.
I really don't think so, because the way they're defending him is as if, it's as if, oh, you're just Luka Doncic, we're going to use that same scheme. Sometimes respect greatness, and that's what they have in front of him, and then in front of them. So they need to respect Luka Doncic even more and actually scheme for this guy. And so, but look, I think they win tonight. I think they recognize what they had to do. I think getting away from home, I think that helps them going forward as well. So yeah, but I think they win tonight. I still have faith in them, blindly.
I think it's tough too, because they I think that's a great point. It feels like they're just underprepared. What I would really like to see them do is similar to what Portland tried to do with Nikola Jokic, just make him score. I think what's been absolutely killer in this series is, Tim Hardaway Jr. is absolutely lighting it up. Dallas's role players have been fantastic. They're getting tons of open shots, really easy looks. And a lot of that is because of how much they're overplaying onto Doncic. And I think what they should do, I don't know if we'll see it, but I would like to see them just force Luka to shoot 30 or 40 shots and win games. Try and involve him on more actions defensively, even though he is a better defender this year. I think probably right around an average to sometimes slightly above average defender. Make him work every single second he's on the court and try and tire him out, because I think that's really all you can do at this point, because clearly what they have been doing is not working. I think part of it, eventually shot regression should hit Dallas, but you can't wait around for that to happen because it's a small sample size and anything could happen, honestly. But it's kind of do or die time for the Clippers right now. They have to win both games in Dallas to really make this a series.
Yeah, there was a game a few years ago when James Harden was with the Rockets and Paul George was with the Thunder, and the Thunder put Paul George on James Harden the whole game. They didn't let him switch. He guarded James Harden, and the Thunder won that game, and primarily because of Paul George's defense. They need to kind of go to that today. No switching. And I also think, it's a hard one, because we say the Clippers need to do all this stuff, but they're actually not doing much wrong. In a way, Luka Doncic is just destroying them. He's picking them apart. And sometimes, someone can just depress you in a way. If you're Pat Beverley and you're an All-NBA or former All-NBA defender, and this guy is just taking the life out of your defense, because he's just picking you apart, it can just demotivate you. And I think that's what's happening more than anything. They're just having the air sucked out of them by Luka Doncic.
One of the things that I said on the previous podcast, and this is why it comes or leads to my overall point, where I think Ty Lue needs to take some responsibility in terms of the defensive setup of the Clippers and also the offensive setup. There was talk of implementing the triangle, which we have seen in elements in some schemes as well throughout the series. But why they haven't been as effective is a point that you made quite clearly and strongly, and it's a positive point, Mark, about their playmaking. They don't have high-level playmaking on the court. And it's so funny that they don't have high-level playmaking on the court right now, but they've got a high-level playmaker on the bench who is not playing enough minutes. Rondo playing 17 minutes in a playoff game, in a playoff series against the Mavs, where they're clearly struggling to generate offense, is just unforgivable, in my opinion. Play Rondo. He needs to play a bulk of the minutes. He needs to play about upwards of 25 minutes, and he needs to create shots for Kawhi. Each shot easier Kawhi and the rest of the team. I think the best way criticism comes for Kawhi. where Kawhi can get his own shot and get his own looks, the key to playoff basketball is making sure your team is warm. The rest of the guys can get looks and they're not so cold. That's what the Lakers and LeBron do very, very well. They can get everyone looks. They can get everyone feeling warm. And KCP still hasn't shown up to the playoffs. And I can guarantee you, as we go further and deeper on into the playoffs, KCP will become a more existent factor. That's what Rondo is there for, essentially. Take that burden off of Kawhi. Kawhi really doesn't do that. He doesn't really play make for other people. You got Rondo. Rondo can do that. Get the other guys involved. That's what needs to happen, and Kawhi can keep doing what Kawhi does. And that's the only way, in my opinion, they can win the series, with Rondo on the court.
Yeah, I agree with that, but as well, the other guys are making their shots. It's not like they aren't getting them; they're missing. And that's the difference right now between the Mavs and the Clippers. Tim Hardaway Jr., Brunson, Porzingis, Finney Smith. They're all playing very well. Marcus Morris, Bev, the other guys, they're not playing very well, and that's a huge difference right now.
I mean, when Max Kleber is hitting deep threes, yeah, cool. You can live with that. I mean, that's not something you can like try and die by and try and like predict. But what you can predict and what you can stop doing is needless traps on Doncic, where Doncic can see it coming from a mile away, and he's already set up or knows who he's going to give the ball to. What you can do is literally what you said, Mark. Try and find a way or figure out a way to get your best defender on Doncic as much as possible. Try not to switch when you don't need to switch. Needless switches always affect the rhythm of the defense as well. And yeah, just be better. Be better organized, and that comes from coaching. So Ty Lue, in my opinion, as my overall point, needs to take a lot of responsibility in how they played the first two games. But yeah, no, cool. So what we can do is move on to the next series, and I think it's one of the most interesting series that we've seen so far. Portland and the Nuggets. Mark, I'll come to you first. Looking at how Game 3 went, are you worried for Portland that they had a lot of great contributions from the rest of their players? So CJ McCollum, Norman Powell, Carmelo got a nice amount of points, and they still managed to lose. Are you worried for them now, having seen that?
A little bit. It's tough because I thought they put together a really good game plan in the first game, and they've tried to execute it the same way. And I think the Nuggets have just kind of figured it out. In the first game, they just did what I was talking about, what I want to see happen to Luka. They put Yusuf Nurkic just to guard Nikola Jokic flat out. They didn't send any double teams, and they just said, okay, score on us. He had a season low for assists. I think he only had 1 assist in that game. And when he wasn't able to create for others, it made it tough. Like, he still had a great individual game, don't get me wrong, but if you only have one guy scoring 36 points instead of one guy scoring 25 or 28 points and, setting up 9 or 10 assists, that totally changes things. It also helps, I think, if I remember correctly, Michael Porter Jr. and Austin Rivers combined to go like 2 of 15 from 3 in that game. So that also contributes. But point being, I thought that was a good game plan. They've tried to keep doing that. Number one, Yusuf Nurkic just is still not completely right health-wise. I don't think he just never has really looked quite right since he came back from injury this year. He really has started gassing out towards the end of games, and that's showing through. But also, they've moved Jokic a lot more to the perimeter to draw him out and remove any semblance of rim protection that Portland has. So their defense has fallen apart. I like Denver in this series as much as I'd like to see Portland win. I mean, I just want a good series, frankly, but I really like Dame, and I mean, I'm hopeful that things can work out for either team. If there was a way for both teams to win, I would root for it. But just point being, like, it feels like Denver has really started to figure out what they need to do to take Portland off. Like, I didn't even feel like Denver deserved to win yesterday's game, and Portland gave them a really good run, and Denver still ended up pulling it out. Like, Jokic's tip in at the end, Portland would have had a chance to go down and tie it, and Jokic just stays doing Jokic things, tips the ball like 3 times and puts it back in for an offensive rebound. That's just typified what the game was like last night. It's going to be really, really difficult for Portland to make any meaningful adjustments to really take this series in any fashion. I think it's going to be really tough for them to take it with how well Jokic is playing.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I haven't seen much of this series. If I'm being honest, I haven't even watched the highlights of yesterday's game. But I picked the Blazers in 7, and I'm still hopeful that it will happen. I think just from reading and seeing the box scores, and that's all the analysis I can give. I think one thing's for sure, the big question mark we had about the Nuggets coming into this series was, outside of Jokic, what else can other guys do? And yesterday we saw Austin Rivers step up and Michael Porter Jr. have a good game. So the other guys are playing well now as well, and that's what you needed alongside Jokic, because we know what he's gonna do. So I think once you have that, it's going to be a tough series now for the Blazers. I didn't know what game plan they were using against Jokic. Obviously, now I've heard that they're making him score the ball, which I guess, is going well. And I think they need to stick that one out, actually. I think it's still the best game plan. They probably need, but I think just in a way, hope the other guys don't make their shots in a way. But yeah, no, I haven't seen much of the series, so I can't really say much. But, Blazers in 7.
I think for me, what's been so interesting, to keep it short and sweet, is that they're very, very similar in terms of the matchups.
Mm-hmm.
Again, when you have Jokic, who is quite clearly the best player on the court, it is kind of what separates both teams. And then in addition to that, I just think when you look at the stats and you look at some of the analysis that's there, when the Nuggets shoot the ball well from 3, they tend to win. And they've done that in the last 2 games now. I think they shot 50% in one of the games, either this game or the last game. And the Trailblazers, since the first game, haven't really, not that they haven't shot it well, but when the Nuggets shoot it well, it just basically is enough to take them over the line. And that's essentially what's happening in this series, where I thought the Trailblazers would win because I thought it would be a guard-orientated game. And obviously their main guard, Jamal Murray, is obviously out. I thought Damian Lillard and CJ would take them over the edge. I mean, it's still very, very early days in the series, game 3. We're looking forward to game 4. But I just think that Jokic is proven too tough to handle. I mean, you look at the Lakers last year. Let's be honest. If not for AD's serious heroics, Jokic was causing the Lakers a lot of problems, and he will cause a lot of teams a lot of serious problems. Where he's so unorthodox, a bit like Luka, where there isn't really a definitive way to guard them out of the game. They're going to cook. They're going to get their buckets. So you need to figure out an alternative way, essentially. And I guess you can credit Portland's innovativeness to try and let him score and literally say, we'll do what we need to do and just let Jokic score. We won't let him dish for everyone else. But essentially, if that's not working, what do you go to next? Because, I just expect Portland to come out with a different plan B and even plan C, because Jokic is obviously nothing right now. The plan A.
Do you think it's time to start doubling Jokic?
I am personally it's really tough. Like, I think if you're a team like the Lakers, you could maybe do it because they have the size and they have the length, but also with Portland, I mean, they're playing really small lineups, and it's less about the small lineups and more about the defense. Like, CJ McCollum is fine as a defender. Like, I like him as a chase defender. He's not great at the point of attack. He's kind of small, but Dame is just not a good defensive player. Part of it's because of what he has to do offensively, but also he just is not a good defender, to be completely blunt. And a lot of it, I think, is effort. But it's tough because I just don't like they don't have good defensive personnel. Like, they could put out good defensive personnel. Like, I'd like to see them run Derrick Jones Jr. more. Like, I think if they wanted to trap Jokic, they'd probably have to play Derrick Jones Jr. because if you're trying to trap with 3 guards, you're just giving up a lot of contest. Well, you're going to try and contest longer looks. So, because I imagine, all right, let's say you trap Jokic at the high post, you rotate over to tag the low man, and Jokic just kicks out to the far corner. Well, you have to get out there and contest it. If you have somebody who's 6'3" or 6'4" contesting it instead of somebody who's 6'7" or 6'8" with a longer wingspan, it's a much less contested shot. So it's hard to double with this team, and they're just not good at rotating. Portland, like they're okay containing the initial drive, but then the rotations after are pretty poor. So I don't think their defense is at a good enough level to try and get by doing it. But at the same point, you kind of just have to throw stuff at the wall and see what happens here. But I don't really know what Portland's going to go to or what they do have to go to, because especially too, like you see yesterday. I mean, I don't know if they can play Cantor anymore in the series. They played him for not even 5 minutes yesterday, and he was a -15. And single game plus minus is a little bit noisy. It's not perfect, but that was a pretty good indication of how difficult it is to play him in this series. I would like they've only played Derek Jones Jr. 5 minutes. They spent the entire MLE on him. I thought he was playing well earlier this season before they took him out of the rotation. But we'll see. It's up to Terry Stotts to make something happen there.
Yeah. And just as a final point, I agree. I think when you look at the roster construction as well, I mean, their sixth man is Carmelo Anthony, who's another offensive weapon. You bring him on to kind of score the balls. You don't really bring him on for his defensive prowess. Even though I do think his like team defense overall in this newfound role is kind of underrated. But all in all, their team isn't constructed to be good defensively. So you've almost got to outscore your opponent, and you've got to commit to that. And I think that's where the discrepancy is, where they're trying to be a good defensive team, but don't have the personnel to implement what they're trying to implement. But then at the same time, put all their efforts into getting the offense round, getting Norman Powell points, getting Carmelo buckets, getting CJ buckets, getting Dame buckets. Even when Kanter comes on, he's a good putback. He's a good second chance rebounder or offensive rebounder, and getting him points as well if he is to come back into the series. So it's just about getting a lot of guys points and less so about what the defensive construction around the team is. And that's where I think they fall short. I think as a game plan, look, you might have to take a page out of some of the teams that we've seen in the past who haven't been great defensively, but they've been very good offensively. You just try and outscore your opponent. You put everything into getting as much shooting as much threes as you can, nailing them. Obviously, it hasn't been what they've done this season, so I'm not expected to see it, but it's just kind of what I would do maybe with the roster that I'm seeing there. You try and get as much shots up as possible and try and outscore your opponent essentially and beat them by saying we've got the better offensive weapons. A bit like what the Nets do to most of the teams that they face this season. So, yeah, I think that's what I would do. But let's go to my team. We might as well go to my team, the Lakers, and what they're doing with the Suns. Nadim, what do you think your biggest takeaway from yesterday's game was? Or, in relation to the entire series?
As I said this a few weeks ago, you have to be perfect to beat the Lakers. And I talked about the Warriors game where the Warriors were great for 3.5 quarters. And then the first about few minutes of the third quarter, the Lakers came back into the game. And that's what happened yesterday. It was a tight game until, they started off the third quarter very loosely. And that cost them. Against a championship team like the Lakers, from minute 1 to minute 48, you have to be inch perfect. And if you're not, they will make you pay. Especially when you have guys like LeBron James and Anthony Davis who they demand so much attention, so much focus, and demand you having to keep up with them. And they put so much pressure on you that if you break, they will keep you broken. And that's the biggest issue that the Suns right now have. And also, look, they are man on the talent from a talent perspective. They just are. The Lakers have LeBron James and Anthony Davis, and they have a great roster there. And they have a good coach as well. And they're just at man right now. And Chris Paul's injury hasn't helped. But, I still think with Chris Paul that it didn't have enough. And it's the unfortunate part of it because they're actually a nice team to root for. But I just think right now, going through the West, there's no one that can beat the Lakers. I'm sorry. No one has the talent to compete with them. And when you have Anthony Davis and LeBron James, they just put so much pressure on you to be perfect. And most teams cannot keep up with that.
Yeah, it's really tough too because, they came out, the Lakers, and feeling the series out. Like it felt like not that they hadn't game plan, but they came out kind of vanilla and wanted to see what Phoenix would do. Like Devin Booker really carved them up in the first game, hit a lot of really good, just well contested shots, but he hit them. And we saw yesterday the Lakers have really adjusted. Like there was a picture that got put out, a screenshot from the game of the Lakers shooting into the paint, completely playing off of Jay Crowder and Chris Paul and loading up the paint to prevent. My dog's excited about the series. I guess
that's what it is.
I've been trying to keep him quiet, but Yeah, I mean, you can see how the Lakers have started to adjust defensively, and they were really taking away a lot of the drives and also the passing lanes. That was a big difference in game 2 and game 3. Like Devin Booker was getting inside, but also finding easy kickouts. Game 2 and game 3, the Lakers started to close off some of those passing lanes because Booker's a solid passer, but he's not a great passer. And if you can take away some of the simpler reads, it makes it a little bit harder for him once he gets inside. With Chris Paul where he's at too. I mean, their offense just has no juice right now. And you saw that in the third and fourth quarter. As well as Phoenix has played defensively, I just think that, if you have to outscore teams at some point. If Jay Crowder is going to continue to shoot 10% from 3 on as many as he's taking per game, I just don't know what Phoenix has in store. Like, I think that they will shoot better eventually because both teams have shot poorly from outside. But part of that's just, I mean, it's been a great defensive series from both teams. It felt watching last night though, and again, like you mentioned, Nadeem, part of it's difficult because Chris Paul's injured, but also it really just felt like the Lakers were starting to get to the point where they've really figured things out. They've clamped down a little bit on what they're trying to do and how they're going to prevent some stuff from Phoenix moving forward. Monty Williams is going to have to make some big adjustments headed into the next game, because otherwise I think Phoenix is in trouble a little bit.
I think it's tough because the Lakers have almost zeroed in on this 90s basketball type of play with the two bigs, and they're just so dominant on the inside, and they're so big and so long as well. And every single time Devin Booker comes around the corner, there's about 2 or 3 guys waiting there for him. So he's seeing so many bodies coming from, and he's just missing shots at the moment because they just contested, or sometimes he has 2 hands in his face. So if the other guys on the team don't start hitting their shots, they're going home in 5 games. It's that simple.
No, for sure. Just to clarify for Mark before I give my take, I'm obviously a huge LeBron fan. LeBron's number 1, so wherever he goes, I go. But if there was a team I support, it's the 76ers. That's my team. That's my city. So I follow Philadelphia, but LeBron's my number 1 guy, man. Till he retires, that will be me. But in terms of the game, I think you guys have literally said what I wanted to say. The Lakers have never been a great 3-point shooting team. If the Lakers start to shoot the 3 ball well, then you have no hope, in my opinion. I think you have no chance, apart from the Nets again. We're yet to see what happens in that series. But talking about the rest of the NBA, what the Lakers do on the interior, in terms of the inside game, in the paint, they just literally crashed the glass, man. Dominant. I think they doubled the points that Phoenix scored in the paint, just showing you how dominant they were inside. They crashed the glass a lot as well. I think the offensive rebounds was about 18-8, something like that, something silly like that. So you just know how dominant, how big this team is. I think Drummond's starting to find his feet in this team because there was a lot of confusion as to what Drummond was doing and what he provided. There was a lot of confusion as to how he meshed with AD and LeBron on the court at the same time. And I think he's beginning to starting to find his feet as well. I just think the Lakers are kind of now they're cruising in. I think every LeBron team, one thing people need to factor in, and that's why when people are getting a bit hysterical about game 1, I was just like, you have to remember, I believe it was every series in last year's playoffs, the Lakers lost game 1, apart from the NBA Finals against the Heat. I think they lost game 1 against Portland. They lost game 1 against the Rockets. And I believe they lost game 1 as well against the Nuggets. So the Lakers always like to feel out the first game and then make the necessary adjustments. And that's why Frank Vogel, underrated coach, he deserves a lot of credit for how he has this team playing defensively. I don't think LeBron's been on a better defensive team, and that's including the Heat. Like, this team is so defensively good that teams are finding it or struggling to find passing lanes. Teams are struggling to beat their man one-on-one in certain situations. And I think you have to give a lot of credit to Frank Vogel for giving confidence to a lot of the role players, because I don't necessarily think we have the best defensive pieces in the league. But what we're doing is the team defense is so solid that it's almost a bit like Thibodeau style. It's like, it's so good that you can't really penetrate and you can't really get to what you, or get the shots and the looks that you really want. If there was one worry I have with the Lakers, It's literally the health, man. You saw AD again. You know, AD, every time he lands these days, I'm just so worried.
I
Like,
know, man. Yeah.
it's so scary. Like, you just
It's
so
been
fragile.
since he came in the league.
No, literally, like he's so fragile that it's actually worrying. Like every time he lands, every time he does a move, and he almost maybe steps on someone's foot, I'm just thinking, oh, not again. Like he just isn't solid for some reason. He's not as strong as his frame should be, and that is my worry because this is literally round one. Who knows what can happen in the later rounds where teams apparently want to play more aggressive on AD to see how his body holds up. So that is my one worry, which is a huge worry because the Lakers are not winning a chip without AD, as in it's just not going to happen with LeBron's age, which must be factored into it, and just the rest of the team. I mean, I've seen enough from this team when they played without AD and LeBron, so I know what they're capable of, and they need AD. They need a healthy, and that's very, very relative, AD. So yeah, that's just me.
Yeah,
No,
I think
I totally agree with that. I mean, like AD's health and like you mentioned with him falling, like watching AD fall is like me watching AJ get hit in the face. I'm like, is he gonna get knocked out? Like, ever since the Klitschko fight, it's always been that with AJ. Like, it's just that's how guys are built. It's you can't control it. But I agree. Like, I think AD's really starting to look right. Like, he was really aggressive last night and played some fantastic ball.
Yeah.
And LeBron kind of put aside some of his concerns too and just really took over. Like the third quarter was the best he's looked in a month, since he's come back. But yeah, I agree. The Lakers, with how they're playing right now, their defense is just elite. It's been so good, and they're getting enough offensively that doesn't matter. I agree, though. Their health is something to monitor moving forward for sure.
I think a positive going for them going forward is I don't think we've even seen the best of LeBron yet. And that's a scary thought for the rest of the NBA is that he almost seems like he's just like loading up for the later rounds because look, this is about his fourth or fifth game back from an injury. Like he's not been back that long. So he's kind of revving up and Anthony Davis is now getting into full flow. And it's a scary thought for the rest of the NBA that their offense doesn't even seem to have clicked yet. And when it does, they're not gonna be beaten in the West. That's for sure.
I can tell you, based on my years of following LeBron, what he's doing, he's definitely loading up. I think you have to. This is the way he rests. He's almost riding the coattails of AD, telling AD almost go out and do what you need to do, dominate because this is your series. As many people predicted, I mean, AD was supposed to play well from game one. That's why when he had such a bad game one, everyone was on him and saying he needs to improve. So this is really AD series, and LeBron recognizes that. And this is almost him resting for when he is required in the later rounds. I think you're going to need a fully healthy LeBron with whoever you play in the finals. And also, if you get to the NBA finals, whoever you play in the NBA finals, you need a fully fit, fully ready LeBron. And this is his way of doing that. He might show out and show his quality in one quarter, but he will definitely not exert all that energy in all four quarters. That's not what he does these days. And I think it's smart basketball, man, especially when he can almost hide within a great team defense. As in, LeBron does his bit, but if you actually pay attention to LeBron, he doesn't do that much on the defensive side, and that's because of the team defense. It's so great. If you compare it to a bit like football, why Barcelona was so great for so long is because Messi didn't really have defensive responsibilities. And the reason why Messi didn't have defensive responsibilities is because the rest of the team was so great at covering or running the extra mile for him and doing the extra bit of work that needs to be done. And I think that's what the Lakers do so well. They make sure that LeBron doesn't need to exert as much energy. And I think that's LeBron talking with Frank Vogel and the rest of the coaching staff, recognizing what needs to be done, who needs to be where, and it's just smart basketball all around. I'm just a huge fan of smart basketball. That's why I thought that losing Rondo as well, who I thought was a great piece to have, who helped LeBron rest again in terms of the playmaking side of things. I think, yeah, smart basketball is just the best basketball for me, man. It's just great to see.
I think lastly, my last point with Anthony Davis, I think one of the reasons why people got onto him after that first game was because of how much of a mismatch he is for the rest of the NBA. Because really and truly at his size, there's no one that can really guard him, and his skill level as well. He's probably the most skilled big in this league. So when he plays like that, it just people look at him and go, "We know you're capable of much more than that. And we need more from you, and we need you to be aggressive." And when he's aggressive, it kind of feeds the entire team. It almost as if the mindset to get on the balls to attack the rim comes from AD. It's a very weird thing. And when he's aggressive, I really don't see how anyone in the West competes with the Lakers.
Facts. Yeah. Any final thoughts, Mark?
No, I agree. I mean, I do think it's really tough because Utah has looked good in some stretches. They haven't been awesome in the series, but just based on what they've done this year. But then again, like the Lakers probably match up pretty well with Utah. We just know, I mean, when this Lakers team is healthy and locked in, they're probably the best in the West. So I agree with you, Nadeem. But it's so hard to project out too, because we never know what's going to happen. Like you just mentioned with like Dante DiVincenzo being out for the Bucks, that changes things. So hopefully we don't have too much more of that news pop out. But I agree, the Lakers are looking pretty primed to do something big.
It's Anthony Davis. He's the mismatch.
Facts, no, for sure, man. And look, they caught serious laugh hearing that his injury isn't as bad as it could have been. So yeah, I anticipate he'll be ready for the next game anyway. So yeah, man. We'll just do quick fire ones to end the episode today. Obviously 76ers again. One of my teams with the Wizards. That series is looking done. It's looking wrapped up. Yeah, I mean, just the biggest thing for me is they overpaid for Bertans in a way that I can't even describe. He is not doing what he was supposed to do. And after that, I think the rest of the roster is just not good enough to compete at any level. I think Westbrook and Beal really mask over the problems with that roster in terms of the construction of that roster. Look, I never expected them to beat the 76ers, but I did expect them to put up a better fight. And yeah, they're just not a great basketball team. I know they did well to get into the playoffs. I mean, they won 17 of their last 23, which was a great run. But when the going gets tough and when it's now time to play half-court offense, slowed down playoff basketball, they don't really compete with the rest of the NBA. So yeah, that's just my little 2 pence on the Wizards.
Yeah, it's tough. I think a lot of it's just Joel Embiid is incredible. He's been putting together a fantastic performance in this series, and I mean, he had a hell of a year, and it's just showing through. I don't think the Wizards team has enough, and like you mentioned with Bertans, yeah, he has had a really, really rough showing in this series too. But it's hard. I mean, with just how good of a defense that Philly team has, it's hard to look at against him. But I agree, he certainly is. It has not been Davis Bertans' year.
Yeah,
I think. Look, after Westbrook and Bill, the roster just isn't that great. I had high hopes for Rui Hachimura coming into this season, and he hasn't quite lived up to that, especially in the playoffs. But also, they can't guard the Sixers, and that's what's really happening here. I mean, Joel Embiid is on his day the most dominant player in the NBA, and no one really has a matchup, has a way to guard him. But especially the Wizards, they just can't do it. And and what Ben Simmons and what's his name, Matisse Thybulle are doing to Bill and the other guys on the Wizards, it's smothering. We talk about the Lakers defense. What those guys are doing is just as impressive. So, yeah, this series is probably over. But I thought that Westbrook and Bill have some fight in them. I don't think the Wizards will go down easy like some other teams.
No, that's fair enough, and that's where we'll leave it for today, man. Definitely in our next playoff roundup, we've got Adam Taylor coming on, and he's going to be dicing it up with us. We will definitely pay more attention on the next Hawks series. We'll see what happens in the coming days with that. We'll also pay attention to the Grizzlies Jazz series, which I think is a very interesting series, with the way Jazz play and whatnot. But yeah, man, I think we've gone into a lot. We want to appreciate Mark for coming on today. Appreciate you for I mean, your insight is great. It's always great to talk hoops with guys from across the border. So yeah, man, we hope to bring you back on later on in the playoffs to when we get to crunch time, when we get to the serious rounds in the playoffs as well, so we can talk a lot more. So yeah, just let the people at home know where they can find you.
Yeah, first of all, thank you guys for having me on. I'd be happy to come on anytime. This was great. You can find me on Twitter at mschindlernba. All my work goes up there. I'm putting stuff out pretty regularly. I do a lot of podcasts, do more writing than. I mean, I'd like to do more writing. I'm doing like 1 or 2 things a week, but I'm focusing in on a lot on the draft right now. Starting to do some prospect scouting, but also, of course, keeping up with all the playoff series and everything. But yeah, so you can find me there. Thank you guys again for having me. This was great.
No worries. Perfect. And then, what you saying, bro? You want to tell the people anything?
Nothing to share right now. But maybe tomorrow or Sunday there'll be something.
For sure, man, for sure. Obviously, I'm going to be doing a Chelsea end of season review after the Champions League with some of my favorite Chelsea people who will be coming onto the podcast as well. So we'll see what happens. By this time tomorrow, we'll know whether Chelsea are Champions League winners or whether I'm going to be a loser. But yeah, man, it's been a great episode. Catch us on the next playoff roundup, which should be happening on Monday, where I'd say half of the series possibly could be decided, and we'll be looking at round 2. From the guys at Eyes on the Court, we out.